This demonstration is about our first real still life working with graphite pencils. And so I'm going to show you some of the things to think about, how to draw things symmetrically, and hopefully you'll enjoy this project. This is a still life from a few years back. You can tell that the light source is coming high from this side here. And so the core shadow runs right along the side of this vessel. You can see it's got a bowl with eggs in it. There's reflective light coming back up to bounce onto the eggs from different places. The books represent the cubes, okay? So all four shapes are involved here. You've got spheres with the eggs. You've got cubes with the books. You've got a cylinder with the mason jar. You've got basically an inverted cone with this jar here, and then another cylinder on top. Another example of a still life, as you look here, there's only 2, 4, 6 objects inside this still life. Once again, your sphere, your cubes. This is half of a sphere. The bottom of the jar is an inverted cone. This up here is a sphere again, and then a cylinder up here. That's what we're looking for in our still life, is examples of the 4 basic shapes. Now when you look at this is the still life that I've set up. I've taken 3 photos. You take your choice of which one that you want to use. This one is near the back, so it's not quite, the shadows are coming off to the side, and so the light source is coming in this way. We've rotated a little bit closer to the front, so now the shadows are going back a little bit behind. I'm also shooting it from above, so you can see a fair amount of the surface of the books. And so we've got the jug here, the jar, 2 apples, a pear. A pear is also a cone shape. And then this is just a bottle of olive oil, a cylinder. This is your third choice. Okay, so this is now behind, so the light's coming at you. So everything's front lit and you're back in the shadows. Now when you look at this, don't try to paint or draw all the labels and things like that. Just think of them as a round surface and it'll be a lot better. But look at the reflective surfaces here. This is very, very dark, so it's a little bit tricky to see the shadows, but the shadow comes right down here across the apple. You can see it right there on the pear. That tells you that the light's coming down this and kind of curves around. Okay? So if we go back to the front, remember, everything's going to throw a shadow somewhere. You can see the shadows coming off of these. And the shadow, the cast shadow, starts where the core shadow is. And so right here, they're on the book. There's the cast shadow coming off right there. This is the shadow off of these objects over here. That's coming across the book. Okay. The apple, there's the cast shadow up there. And you got the core shadow right along there. So this is the still life that I set up for the class. Now, as you look at it, you can see representation of all the basic shapes. Your books, they're the cubes. Your fruit, that is the sphere, and also the pear works as a cone. This is your cylinder. This is a cylinder here with an inverted cone underneath it. Okay, so I'm giving you another option. If you desire, you can, instead of using one of those 3 photographs, you can set up your very own still life. But these are the rules. You have to have a representation of all the basic shapes. I want you to probably use books for your cube. They work very well, and they look nice in a still life. You have to have at least 6 items. This one has 7. Don't go much over that because then it's just too much work. But find something that looks good in a grouping. Now, also, don't spread them out because you need to cluster them into a nice composition. The next problem is your light source. Now, I have a lamp over here. Now, the lamp gives me a constant directional source for my light. You may not have that at home, but what you may have is just a regular lamp. And if you close off your windows, pull the drapes and such, you can turn on a lamp and have it next to your still life, and that will give you constant directional light. Another way is simply to set up everything by a window and let the sunlight come in. Now that means you can only draw during the day, which is not a problem, and the light will change in intensity as the sun moves around, but because you have one window, the shadows should be fairly consistent. So that's your options. You can pick one of the 3 photos from the grouping, or you can set up your own. So let's talk about how to draw symmetrical shapes. So here's this jug from our still life. And so I've seen a lot of drawings of things like this, and they look like, oh, they're made out of plastic that's melted or something. So we want to make it so it's the same on both sides. So the first thing we do is we draw a center line straight down where it's going to be on the paper. And of course, all these things are done with a very light pencil. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the form, and I'm going to try to recreate 1/2 of it. So I'm going to start at the neck. And I'm only drawing 1/2 of it, so I don't want to get it too wide. I'll come down. And then I start looking at the shape and deciding how I want to draw this form. And be in a position to draw lightly and be able to erase everything. So I think what I'm going to do is make this come out a little flatter. And this is easier with a pencil rather than a marker. Okay. And I want to bring that in because that's too wide of a base. And I think I'm going to like that a little bit better. So if I decide that that's an okay profile, then my next job is to match the other side. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to take my T-square so that everything is level. And I'm going to make sure that I hit all the junction points, like where the curve comes into the neck. I want to get the widest point, which would be about in the middle of this pot. Okay, now I have my center line, So now all I have to do is simply measure and make dots. Okay, so that's about 1.25 inches. Okay, and this also 1.25 inches. And so I've made most of my marks. An easy way to do it is just to hold your ruler here, and this turns out to be 6 1/4, so then I can just move it this way and then mark 6 1/4. So I've made my marks. So now I can take my pencil and very lightly start to connect the dots. So I come out here and I look at the shape there and try to mimic what I've got. And then, once again, it's a matter of connecting the dots. And of course, once I get it done, I can start making adjustments. I can say, I think this is actually a little taller here, you know. So you start working on your proportions, getting it right. You may think that you need to change the curve a little bit or something like that. But this is a way of making your piece symmetrical. And also you come in and start fixing the curves, you know, rounding them off a little bit, and just refining your shape. But you can do that with something like the cylinders, the bottle of olive oil, or any jar that you have. Draw a center line, draw 1/2 of it, and then measure back and forth with perpendicular lines to the center line and measure it off. And that way you're going to get objects that actually look fairly real. Okay? Just some final thoughts about your still life. What you want to do is simplify things as much as you can. Don't worry about printing what's on the book. It's not necessary. We're more interested in shading the shapes. If you have a bottle, a jar that has a label on it, you can completely ignore the label, or you can put the label on, but don't put in the detail. Be careful about the books. One of the things that I see quite often is people have a tendency to show too much of the surface, so it makes the books look like they are all tilted up. And so rather than do that, look and see what's there and think about how much space is in between everything. And chances are you'll find that the top of the book will be a very narrow space. Okay? And if you have a reflective surface, remember to leave those spots so they're bright. So have fun with this project. Ask for help if you need it. Show me your work from time to time. Have fun.